Welcome back to Watch the Bookerman and to episode number 45 of Paul Heyman's TNA 2010. And I just want to get straight into this episode as we look back on what was an eventful start to the final stretch of the road to Bound for Glory. This is the second of 4 weeks in the build to the biggest show of the year. And like I said, we look back at the explosive previous episode. Bobby Lashley made his TNA return before Mick Foley was taken down in the parking lot as a result of a hit and run assault. We also see footage from Sting's interaction with Jeff Hardy, as well as the moment when Kurt Angle accepted AJ Styles' Bound for Glory challenge. Tonight, two huge matches will take place as four teams look to secure their place in the World Tag Team Championships match at Bound for Glory. The two victorious teams will join Motor City Machine Guns in Full Metal Mayhem 5 on 10-10-10. So another big show with some matches with huge implications for Bound for Glory. Mick Foley has actually left the company now, so that's the last we'll see of him. Mick being carted off in an ambulance at the end of last week's Impact, but of course we'll follow all that up. We then go into the opening match of the night. Kazarian and Daniels come out, and Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team come out. They're two of the teams who want to be in that Full Metal Mayhem, but Kazarian and Daniels are joined by their Bad Influence stablemate Matt Morgan. As a result of the Blueprint being at ringside, LAX come out. They want to even the score. They know what Matt Morgan's going to try and do, especially given the history between Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team and Kazarian and Daniels in such a short space of time. They have their eyes on Morgan for any potential interference, with the possibility of another incident between the two warring sides. The referee Mark Johnson, or Slick Johnson, gets word in his ear. It's then announced that Matt Morgan, Tracy Brooks and the entirety of LAX are barred from ringside for the course of this match. WGTT and LAX are equally happy with this outcome, while Kazarian and Daniels look to protest the decision. They struggle. By no means a one-sided match, but Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team do advance to the Full Metal Mayhem. Kazarian and Daniels having their game plan thrown off, and Charlie Haas pins Frankie Kazarian with a German suplex. A 69 is a good opening match for the night. We see Shelton Benjamin, the standout performer. It's not often that Daniels is in a match and isn't the best performer, so Shelton Benjamin doing really well there. The other guys doing okay, and I think kicking off an Impact with a match of that quality really is something that I like to do. I think it sets the tone for what is going to be a really action-packed show, and following the match, Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team celebrate their victory as their place in the Full Metal Mayhem match at Bound for Glory is confirmed. Charlie Haas and Shelton Benjamin have been through a lot to get to this. They had their match at No Surrender, the dream match with Motor City Machine Guns, then had it taken away from them due to injury, but they will join Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin in that World Tag Team Championship match on 10-10-10, along with the winners of tonight's main event. Mauro and Taz put over this vindication that I just mentioned, having had their titles stolen from them in part by Bad Influence and in part by Beer Money, who initially caused the injury. And speaking of Storm and Rude, the commentators say that they've just got word of two men arriving in the building who may well be of interest to Beer Money. And we cut then to the parking lot, where Brother Ray and Brother Devon are seen arriving at the Impact Zone for the first time in over 6 months. We haven't seen them due to them being contracted to New Japan Pro Wrestling. New Japan always have shows on a Thursday. They're the priority, and we haven't got to use Brother Ray and Brother Devon. I was touch and go about using them anyway due to their age and the fact that they don't really fit in with where we want to go. But of course, Brother Ray reinvented himself as Bully Ray, and Brother Devon also had a good little run. So I was thinking that they would have a place as the veterans in the tag team division. That choice was taken out of my hands, but they're asked if they are the mystery team who will face Beer Money in tonight's main event, and Team 3D confirm they are that team. Brother Ray says that they haven't forgotten what happened to them at the hands of Beer Money all them months ago, but that's not why they're here. Beer Money actually attacked Brother Ray and Brother Devon when turning heel to invoke their Feast or Fired briefcase against Motor City Machine Guns. So this is from a really long time ago, but we're bringing that back just because I noticed that Brother Ray and Brother Devon were, for whatever reason, available for this show, and it kind of made them the perfect fit. With it being Full Metal Mayhem, a match that they were innovators of, they're here because they know a thing or two about matches involving tables, ladders and chairs, and they want to become 23-time World Tag Team Champions at Bound for Glory. We then return to ringside, and Samoa Joe makes his way down to the 6 sides, taking a microphone before he enters, but Samoa Joe isn't here to cut a long promo. He has just one thing to say: Bobby Lashley, get out here right now. Bobby Lashley doesn't need a second invitation, and as he comes down to the ring, Samoa Joe meets him halfway. The commentator is explaining what happened last week. Bobby Lashley returning, attacking AJ Styles, then taking out Samoa Joe and standing tall at the end of the night and looking like he's the better man. Joe, of course, wants to correct this because he doesn't believe that for a second. Within a few moments, a brawl has broken out between the two, reminiscent of the one just 2 weeks ago between Joe and Kurt Angle. I don't like to do these big pull-apart brawls so close to each other, but I want to show that this is almost as important as a World Heavyweight Championship match to Samoa Joe. Not quite, of course, but once again, they have to be pulled apart. Security coming between them. The commentators comparing this to that previous segment. Bobby Lashley and Samoa Joe are eventually separated, but the commentators put over that it is only a matter of time before this rivalry bubbles over once again. We saw at Bound for Glory 2009 just how much these two guys don't like each other, and it looks like they are going to go at it again at some point in the future. Bound for Glory, of course, just around the corner. A really good segment there. Quite surprised by that, getting the crowd hotter once again. So this is a show where the crowd are reaching a fever pitch here, and hopefully by the end of the night we have put on a really, really special episode of Impact. We then go into the second match of the night, and it is the X Division Champion's first match since winning the title, as he did from Jay Lethal at No Surrender. Kazuchika Okada defeats Matt Jackson in 6 minutes and 50. It's a little bit shorter than I would have liked, but there is a pull of the leg from Larry Sweeney, which helps Kazuchika Okada along his way. Okada is sort of becoming more complicit with what Sweeney's doing in recent weeks, and it is obviously going to come to a head at some point. But Okada didn't really see what he did to Matt Jackson. He was just getting on with his game, and he picks up the victory. Good performance from Matt Jackson. Kazuchika Okada, he's not quite there yet. We're trying to build him up, and having those not so good ratings for somebody who isn't that over is something that we just have to deal with at this point. Of course, if he's getting big wins, perhaps at Bound for Glory, that should stand him in good stead for the future. We then see Larry Sweeney and Austin Creed join the X Division champion in the ring after his victory. Sweeney has a microphone as he announces the X Division Championship match at Bound for Glory on 10-10-10. 10 competitors will face off, with Kazuchika Okada and 9 challengers competing in a match where falls count anywhere. No matter where in the building the first fall occurs, that man will win the X Division Extravaganza, as it's being dubbed, and they will leave as the X Division champion. Larry adds that he knows what people are thinking, and he's going to nip it in the bud right now. They might think that he'd object to Paul Heyman making Okada defend his title against 9 X Division athletes at once, just months after allowing Jay Lethal to alternate his title defences, but he doesn't. Larry Sweeney's saying this, but his tone, there's clearly a passive aggressiveness to this. He thinks the whole thing's kind of stupid, but like Paul Heyman told him last week, his job is to promote this match. Larry Sweeney is all about opportunity, and 10-10-10 is his opportunity to make a lot of money and to solidify the status of Kazuchika Okada as the hottest prospect in professional wrestling. What's more, he's delighted to announce the first confirmed challenger to the X Division champion, Austin Creed. Creed looks happy, Okada looks kind of nonplussed by it. He's ready to face whoever he has to face to retain his X Division championship, and we advance the X Division Extravaganza storyline. Larry Sweeney doing well in a okay segment. It's not fantastic, but I'd say there's two ways of looking at this match, and I'd say both are equally valid. One, it's kind of that typical X Division thing of how when it comes to the big shows, we somehow end up with a just thrown together match. 10 guys are going to fight each other for the X Division Championship without much storyline or background to it, which is, like I've accepted, the criticism of the X Division during the first 10 months of this save. I've not been good enough in building the storylines, but I also think that at this landmark event, it gives us the opportunity to give a definition to who is in the X Division. It's been a little bit wish-washy with Jay Lethal holding the title and it being kind of combined with the Global Championship throughout much of the year, and just in general we've had sort of Kazarian hold the title, but then he's been a tag team guy, or Amazing Red, and then he's gone into LAX. So what I want this match to serve as is to say these 10 guys are the X Division. Of course there's a few more people who are in it, but these are the 10 core guys that we're going to build the division around, and the idea is that from 10-10-10 we move forward with a bit of a fresh start. Of course, it's the no limits division, but I do want there to be a little bit more structure in what we class as an X division athlete. When you see that 10-man match, you will say this is proof that he hasn't really done much with the X division throughout the year, but also that there is plenty of talent. And I've actually been watching Bound for Glory 2009 and just old TNA stuff in the build up to Bound for Glory to try and get me into sort of the mindset of booking a big TNA show, and it just makes me feel even worse for not booking them that well, to be honest, because the X division was so incredible for all those years. I've just watched the Ultimate X from Bound for Glory 2009. It's just brilliant. I could have done an Ultimate X here. I didn't because we've already got the Full Metal Mayhem match. They did a Full Metal Mayhem and a Ultimate X at Bound for Glory 2009, but I didn't want to have two matches where it's a title hung from the ceiling. I had the same problem at Slammiversary with the Queen of the Mountain and wanting to do an Ultimate X or a Full Metal Mayhem. I think you can't really have two of that match on the same show, in my opinion. It'd be better to have an Ultimate X maybe at the start of next year or something like that, space out those special matches, and I think that having a 10-man match where you can win anywhere is going to give us the chance for some huge spots from the X Division extravaganza, potentially stuff in the back and stuff off the Bound for Glory set. So I think big potential for the X Division to almost not steal the show, but go under the radar and then produce something really special at Bound for Glory and kickstart what has to be a better end of 2010, start of 2011 for the division. Even with stuff that I've got planned out now, there is definitely going to be an improvement in that regard. Heading to the locker room, Roderick Strong is then shown with Jimmy Jacobs, Alyssa Flash and Mischief. He's approached them as he tells the leader of the New Age that he went to visit Mick Foley in hospital this afternoon, and Mick told him that Jimmy hasn't visited, he hasn't spoken, he hasn't even sent a text to see how Mick was. Strong asks what Jimmy Jacobs was playing at. When they tried to recruit him, this was all about how they're in it together, but they're leaving Mick to recover on his own. Jimmy Jacobs puts his arm on the shoulder of Strong and tells him that the New Age can't afford to carry passengers. Not now, not with how close they are to finally revealing the fruits of their labour. He explains that Mick was only ever a means to an end, and they've extracted what they needed from him. Right now is the most important time in their entire incarnation, and they can't stall, they can't look back, and they can't wait for Foley. It is now or never for the New Age. Jacobs then leaves with Alyssa Flash and Mischief. Strong doesn't look happy with what he's heard from his leader. It's an okay segment, already feeling the effects of missing Mick Foley. That probably would have been at least in the 60s with him in it. Jimmy Jacobs is showing a very, very callous side in just tossing Mick Foley away. He doesn't care about him. They got him to get those deals done that will come into place for Project 10, but they're done with him now. We then head elsewhere in the back, where Jeremy Borash is shown outside the door of a locker room with the name Bryan Danielson, the newest signing to TNA. JB says that tonight Bryan will take his first steps into the 6 sides, but he wants to see if he can get a word with Bryan before then to see what his intentions are, what he plans to do tonight. When JB knocks on the door, however, Paul Heyman sticks his head out. He's clearly in talks with Bryan at the time, and he tells Borash that they're a little bit busy, but we'll be hearing from Bryan in the ring later tonight, so JB can go away. JB shrugs and sends back to ringside. Like I've said, we'll find out later on. Paul Heyman doing a good job of advancing Bryan and Wolf's storyline there. We then end the hour with a victory for the New Age, the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, decisively defeating the pretty new team of Hamada and Taylor Wilde. It's an open match, both sides get a lot of offense in, but there's no need for Jimmy Jacobs to help them on the outside. The New Age are just the stronger team, Flash pinning Taylor Wilde, and of course this is all about putting over them before their title defense at Bound for Glory. We don't really know what that's going to be. After the match, Jimmy Jacobs joins the Knockouts Tag Team Champions in the ring. I will just know I know what the match is going to be. I'm just saying it's not been announced yet. Don't worry, I'm not 2 weeks out from Bound for Glory and have no idea what to do with the Knockouts division. I think we've got a really good tag team titles match. They're joined by SoCal Val, and she asks again, like Roderick Strong did, Mick Foley, his condition, how's he doing? And she wants to know if Jimmy Jacobs will be launching an investigation to find out who was in that black camper van, who was behind the hit and run. The New Age leader initially tries to avoid the question and talk about the project, but SoCal Val really tries to press him on what has been a huge story in TNA. Jacobs tells her that the New Age existed before Mick Foley, and it will exist long after everybody has forgotten about him. He isn't here to talk about old men, he is here to talk about their project and what is coming very, very soon. They got what they needed from Mick Foley, he reiterates, and now isn't the time for sentiment. The New Age is coming, and it is coming very, very soon. Jimmy Jacobs then leads the New Age out. He's really angry that he's being pressed on this. He doesn't care about Mick Foley. That's not important. The New Age is what's important, advancing their storylines with a solid promo from Jimmy Jacobs. Like I said, we're missing Mick Foley, but perhaps the rub that he's given this group is coming to fruition, ending the first hour with Jimmy Jacobs trying to keep focus on the New Age. Despite Mick Foley turning heel, I think it still looks very, very heelish from Jimmy Jacobs, and hopefully that makes him a more detestable figure as we continue to try and build up this incoming Project 10. We then return to the second hour and a sit-down interview with Jeff Hardy is introduced. Mike Tenay speaks with him about Sting's word from last week. We saw Jeff's reaction. He didn't like what was said to him. Without insulting the icon or getting personal, he makes it clear that he doesn't need anybody sticking their nose into his affairs. He's an adult. He can deal with it. He adds that as long as he's able to perform in the ring and entertain the fans, then nothing else matters to him and it shouldn't matter to anybody else. Jeff adds that when he is ready, he will return to the ring. He's not going to rush it, and he just needs to take some time to himself. Mike Tenay tries to push further. He's wondering why Jeff Hardy doesn't want to rush back for Bound for Glory. It's the biggest show of the year, and he also wants him to comment on how he feels about Sting airing his personal struggles, but Jeff refuses to be drawn. Tenay draws the interview to a close when it's clear that Jeff Hardy isn't going to say anything else. Jeff improvising well, gaining heat to the storyline, so a really good segment overall. And the idea here is that Jeff's becoming quite close, quite defensive. Sting's going to have to do more work if he wants to reach out and get that help that he feels Jeff Hardy needs. Returning to the ring, we see that Paul Heyman has already made his entrance as he introduces the newest member of the TNA roster, Bryan Danielson, to the Impact Zone. Bryan comes down to the ring and shakes hands with Heyman, who puts over the free agent sign even more. He says that he's been watching him in recent years and he is delighted to have the opportunity to bring one of the best in the world to TNA. It's not every day that somebody this good falls into your hands, and Paul Heyman just knew he had to get Bryan in as soon as he heard he was available. By now, Desmond Wolfe has heard enough and he cuts an exasperated figure as he says that he is already sick of seeing Bryan's face. He makes his way down to the ring and explains that he spent his entire career trying to end Danielson, and he thought when he came to TNA he'd finally seen the back of him. He says that Bryan has been trying to emulate him for years, and where he comes from they have a name for that. Desmond goes face to face with Bryan and calls him a knock-off Nigel. Bryan Danielson laughs at Wolf's frustration. He's taking delight in the fact that he's being a thorn in the side of the former Nigel McGuinness. Paul Heyman speaks again and says there is no better time, no bigger night for somebody to debut than Bound for Glory, and he sees no better opponent for Bryan Danielson than Desmond Wolfe. So a huge match set for Bound for Glory for people who know the history between these guys. We're trying to fill in the gaps and we will do over the next few weeks, but it's a really good segment to gain heat to their storyline. Paul Heyman obviously doing a really, really good job. His catchphrase and the fact that it was just a generally good performance helping us, but both guys improvising well is really good to see. These two bouncing off each other, and hopefully they have that good chemistry inside the ring to potentially again steal the show at Bound for Glory. Bryan Danielson's wrestling machine gimmick gets inadequate, which is a little bit disappointing, but he'll probably improve on that over the next few weeks and months, so nothing to worry about there. Last week when he debuted, he got the awful gimmick. Thankfully, the little mistake that I'd made covered for that and adequate. As a result, I'm quite relieved to get that. Back from the break, Beer Money is shown in the interview area as Jeremy Borash looks for reaction to Team 3D's appearance earlier and their match against them in the main event. Beer Money says that they can see what's happening. Everybody can see it. Paul Heyman has brought back his old heavies, his old henchmen to try and take them down. Team 3D have done nothing to earn a shot at the World Tag Team titles, and everybody can see that as well. Having tried to reason with Paul in recent weeks, it's become clear that they're never going to get through to him, so they've got a better idea. Tonight, they're going to beat the hell out of Team 3D until they are unrecognisable as the 22-time Tag Team Champions, and ensure that it's going to be even longer than 6 months before we see them this time. They're pretty fired up about this. They don't like that they've had to face a mystery team. They're even angrier that it's Team 3D who haven't done anything to deserve this shot. There's a lot of history, a lot of heat between these two teams, but Beer Money just want to focus on 10-10-10 and taking back their championships in Full Metal Mayhem. To do that, they will have to get past one of the greatest tag teams in the history of the business. Tara then defeats the technically debuting but the local talent Thea Trinidad, later became known as Rosita in TNA and is most well known now as Zelina Vega. And actually a 45 from her is a really good performance. I don't know, I mean, I think she's 1 year into the business. I brought her in literally to be a jobber because I thought she'd be way off. She must have some overness in the southeast or be really, really talented in the mod. I was going to bring her in eventually around the time they did in real life as Rosita, but I might be able to speed that up. Tara, as always, is really good as well, and a 53 rating for a 1 minute 44 match. I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest. And following her victory, Tara takes a microphone and addresses the New Age's issues with her. A couple of months ago, Jimmy Jacobs told her that her face didn't belong anymore and that her time had passed, and since then she's beaten Alyssa Flash and she's beaten Mischief. The New Age may have been dominant in the Knockouts tag team division, but Tara has proved that she still stands head and shoulders above every single competitor in this company. So a little bit of arrogance from Tara, but I think it's fair enough given the year she's had, given the performances she's put in. She has every right, just like Kurt Angle does in the men's division, to say, I'm the best and somebody's going to have to prove otherwise. The only thing she is missing is the Knockouts Championship to prove it, and she wants Awesome Kong at Bound for Glory. Instead of Kong, Sarah Del Rey comes out to the ring. She tells Tara that she can't say she's head and shoulders above everybody when she hasn't faced Sarah Del Rey. SDR says that she has been the very best of the Knockouts since coming to TNA. She has beaten everybody in her path, and she's the one who will face Kong at Bound for Glory. Tara says that Del Rey hasn't quite beat everybody because not only was she beaten by Awesome Kong last time they faced, she hasn't beat Tara either. So how about before 10-10-10, they settle their differences, prove who the better woman is in a match next week, and whoever has their arm raised in victory, that woman will have proved that they deserve the shot at Awesome Kong. Sarah Del Rey couldn't agree more. This is the perfect agreement for the two of them. A number one contenderships match next week, but not officially stated. These are the only two with a realistic claim, I'd say, of facing Awesome Kong, and we'll see how that goes next week on Impact. A really good segment from the two of them, despite Sarah Del Rey struggling without a script. Tara helped carry the storyline, and in the process of her mentioning the New Age and mentioning Awesome Kong, we advanced two storylines, so that's good to see as well, because they've both had heat added to them thanks to her. Awesome Kong not appearing again, but I've said before I see her as a bit of a special attraction. I think that she doesn't speak, and she's more like the person who everybody else has to climb the mountain to get to. So in a way, I don't think that we need her, despite being the Knockouts champion, to appear every week. She will appear before the pay-per-view, obviously, and of course she'll be in the Knockouts championship match at the pay-per-view. We then get a video package looking at the rivalry between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle. This video package, and something we've got later that's also like a video package thing, is all we've seen of Kurt Angle and AJ Styles. I really want to hammer home their storyline in the last 2 weeks, but I thought we could just cool it down this week, have the confirmation that they'll face off at Bound for Glory. Paul Heyman's signed and sealed it, and no other storyline development really. This package does go pretty in depth though. The matches at Genesis where AJ beat Kurt, and the match at Lockdown where Kurt beat AJ, shown from early in the year, confirming their match against each other for the World Heavyweight Championship match at Bound for Glory. We're putting over that their record in 2010 is 1-1. The commentator is explaining that when this match was made official, the comment from Paul Heyman was simply that he believes AJ Styles and Kurt Angle are the two best wrestlers on the planet, and that's why he signed for them to face off in the main event of the biggest show of the year. BFG will see them clash for the third time in 2010, the winner essentially winning their series, but more importantly, the World Heavyweight Champion and leading TNA into the new year. Not necessarily the new year, but it's a new cycle, like after WrestleMania, where it all begins again. The same thing at Bound for Glory. Jay Lethal then makes his way down to the ring and grabs a microphone as he enters. The global champion has the blinkers on. He doesn't slap hands with the fans like he normally does. He enters the ring, takes his title belt from around his waist and lays it across the canvas. Lethal knows that James Mitchell is probably about to pop up on that screen with a taunting message, and he knows that there's nothing he can do about it. He doesn't know where Maria is. He doesn't know where Abyss and James Mitchell are. Before Mitchell comes on the screen, he's got something to say. He points to the Global Championship on the ground and says that Mitchell has claimed that he took something of great importance to Abyss and that this is an eye for an eye. This title means a lot to Jay Lethal, but it is nothing compared to having Maria safe. Lethal says that Abyss can have the shot, hell, he can have the title as long as Maria isn't harmed. So that might be seen as going a little bit too far, him offering the title for Maria, but I'm really putting over not only how much Jay Lethal cares about Maria, but also the fact that this rivalry, while being over a global championship, has gone beyond that into fully personal rivalry. James Mitchell does then appear on the screen, but says that Jay still isn't quite getting it. They are in full control of the situation, but he'll see Jay in the ring next week. Just James Mitchell, just Jay Lethal one-on-one, and they can sort this messy situation out once and for all. Mitchell's feed then cuts off and Mr. Anderson comes out ready for his match with Jay Lethal, and he decides to mock Jay Lethal's situation, further trying to get under his skin. He's implying that Jay Lethal shouldn't even be here tonight. He should be out, leaving no stone unturned in his search for Maria. He improvises well, Jay improvises well, Mitchell improvises well. Other than the announcing and James Mitchell apparently underperforming, this is a really good segment, only a 65, but I'm happy with how it advances the eye for an eye storyline, and it puts over further that Mr. Anderson, he is an asshole. In a bout that has good heat and decent wrestling, Mr. Anderson defeats Jay Lethal in 7 minutes and 43. He doesn't use a foreign object, but he does grab the tights when he rolls him up, and it's just putting over that Jay Lethal is clearly off his game. He's had a great year, but what we're really trying to build up here is that as good as it's been for him, he risks losing everything now. He's lost his girlfriend, he's lost one of his titles, and another one of his titles will be on the line in the future. He'll have to defend that global championship while focusing on everything that's going on in his turbulent personal life. He's even lost his best friend. Mr. Anderson takes advantage of him being off his game tonight by picking up the victory. Again, having a champion lose isn't something I necessarily like to do. The storyline is superseding anything at this time, and Jay Lethal, his head couldn't be more messed up now. There's no way he can focus on his professional wrestling career while his girlfriend has been abducted, and he really has to do something, and do something quickly, something drastic to snap him out of this. Otherwise, he risks losing all the good work that he has done throughout this year, of course through no fault of his own. While the focus remains on the struggles that I've just explained of Jay Lethal, the winner, Mr. Anderson, does take a microphone from ringside. He says that based on his performance tonight, tradition dictates that he should get a shot at Jay Lethal's global championship, right? Anderson also understands his place here in TNA. Paul Heyman doesn't like him, so that's not going to happen. They'll find some other way, find some other guy to face Jay Lethal. The fact he's the only guy to beat Kurt Angle in the last 9 months doesn't matter either, because Paul doesn't like him. Recently, a friend told Mr. Anderson that you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Anderson then looks down the camera lens and says that if something doesn't change soon around here, he might just test that theory. So Anderson implying that he's very much at the end of his tether in the company. A good promo from him, using his catchphrase to his advantage, and Anderson basically saying, if you don't start using me better, then you might not have me at all. Promoting the World Heavyweight Championship match further, a recap of the segment between AJ Styles and Kurt Angle is played before the main event. The commentators then confirmed that we will hear from both men on next week's episode of Impact. Last week, they basically both put over they wanted the match at Bound for Glory. They agreed to it, and then Paul Heyman has confirmed it. Amazing Red and Sarita have also made a challenge to Frankie Kazarian and Tracy Brooks, while the main event will feature one member of each of the 3 teams who qualify for the Full Metal Mayhem. So champion Chris Sabin will face Charlie Haas and one of either Brother Ray or Robert Roode next week. Which one it'll be, we'll find out next in our main event, which is won by Beer Money. It goes 12 minutes. It's a competitive back and forth match, and I think I booked this as, was it a car crash? Yeah, so I wanted it to really be a heated, fired up exchange. Beer Money defeat Team 3D. Not only is it a bit of a, maybe not go as far as a passing of the torch, but given how well Brother Devon performed, it's good to see. It should hopefully get them a little bit more over, but it's almost passing the torch in terms of Team 3D not being involved in the Full Metal Mayhem. I think every other Full Metal Mayhem in TNA history has had at least one of the original guys, whether it was Christian or Jeff Hardy or Team 3D. So this is almost a way of justifying the fact that we're going to have a Full Metal Mayhem not involving any of them guys, and it's because ceremonially Beer Money have gone over Team 3D, who, as I've said, are leaving the company very soon. Just like Mick Foley, their contracts have run out, and given their commitments to New Japan, there's no point in me signing them to a new deal when they're not going to be available to me. With their place in the Full Metal Mayhem match confirmed, Beer Money have their arms raised in the ring. Despite their victory, they're not finished with Team 3D. They want to send a message to their Bound for Glory opponents, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and Wrestling's Greatest Tag Team. So they head to the outside and each take a table from under the ring. They want to put both Brother Ray and Brother Devon through them. This is also fitting because it was a tables match between Team 3D and Motor City Machine Guns where Beer Money became the World Tag Team Champions in the first place. So it's all sort of knitting back together really, really well, of course. Beer Money have their issues with Motor City Machine Guns that have been going on throughout the year, but also that we can bring this all back to that moment 6 months ago where Motor City Machine Guns got the rub from Team 3D and then Beer Money stole the championships from them. I really like how this segment brings everything together in that storyline, and it allows some closure as Team 3D move on from the company. Motor City Machine Guns come down to the ring, making the save for the legendary tag team who they have a lot of respect for. The World Tag Team Champions grab steel chairs from ringside and run off both members of Beer Money. As Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin check on Team 3D, we get the ending of the night and potentially the end of their TNA careers. Brother Ray and Brother Devon raise the arms of the World Tag Team Champions. Just another little moment of putting them over. I would have liked to have done maybe a month storyline where we maybe had Brother Ray and Brother Devon put their careers on the line to get the shot, but because we only had them on this one night, I had to do sort of a one night story, and I think we've done a good job of that, bringing everything together and essentially putting over two teams at the same time. They're giving their stamp of approval to Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, and also they've put over in the ring Beer Money, those two teams who have wanted to build this division around for the entire year. I think that really brings Team 3D's time with TNA to an end as perfectly as we could given the circumstances. I will just go through or show on screen Explosion. I'm not going to go through it. It was an X Division heavy show because of course it'll air after this episode of Impact. So the X Division extravaganza is already announced, and then we have guys declaring for that. There's only about 10 guys who you could class as the X Division, so it's not like we're going to have qualifiers for that, but a bunch of guys confirming for that. A decent episode. Happy with this week's show as well. It was not as big in terms of the shocking moments as last week's show. We had Bryan debut, Lashley return, and Mick Foley written out a storyline. But I think in terms of a one night story of the show, again, like we've been trying to do, putting the tag team division on its own pedestal, I think everything in that sense has worked out really, really well. So I'm delighted with that show overall. By the week, I'm getting more excited for Bound for Glory. Thank you for watching, and I hope you're back for the next episode.